Welcome back, everyone. We're here. We're doing another update for the RotoMaker. So you're going to see a V2 pack, which is going to include the contents of the V1 pack. And essentially what I've done is I've streamlined the process a bit. Now, you could say it speeds it up, but I just say it's easier to use. I don't really think it's actually faster. It just ends up being faster because there's less managing of like all four. It was 4 workflows, if you remember. Video will be linked in the description for the last video, which explains how to install and get set up with this workflow. So for everybody that already watched the last video, we're just going to dive straight into it. So essentially what I've done is I've created a new version of Trio T-Pose and bundled it with the workflow. That way you can make images to put into Mimic which match exactly the source video. So I'm going to show you what I mean by that. If we just take a look at this workflow here, I'm just going to quickly go down to the main area. So this is the main controls, really. What we have is we have a switch. We've got a couple of tools, which you may or may not need. Join a video, which is for taking 2 videos or more and joining them into a single video. Dumper frames, which is for taking the source video you intend to use with Mimic Motion as the driver, and that will dump the frames to a folder. And then you can use 1 or more of those as your control net guides with Trio. And that will give you a really tight figure or character to match the animation which you're going to make it go with. So I picked the most neutral pose, okay, and then throw that in. I'll show you that. Then we got create face model. So just in case you hadn't actually created a face model, you know, you probably should have saved some face models for your characters by now. And there's a full explanation of how to do that in the first Loki video. Now, step 0, which is the new stage, Trio. So making the image you're going to put into the animation. And then stage 1, animation, that'll be Mimic Motion. And then finally stage 2, which is the face swap. And we're going to use the masked face swap. So what I've done is I've dropped a bunch of unnecessary stuff and put it all in one. So let's just quickly walk through what each part does. So if I just take a look at the joiner video section, all right, it's intended to use one at a time. So if we have a look at joiner video, it's really quite simple. What we have is we have a whole bunch of these load video nodes. And as you can see, if I put 1 or more of them, they can be anywhere really, because once you collapse them, there's loads of room. I do recommend collapsing them as well, because it does take up a little bit of power. And when you have a lot of these, it's playing all these videos at the same time. It's all right to have 1 or 2, but when you've got 20 or 30, it does start to sort of have an impact. So minimize that. It's not playing them now, right? So this would be my part 1 or my clips. So say I've been splitting them into batches of 150 frames. I'd take my first batch, my second batch, my third batch, my fourth batch. And this is how because the thing is the face swap is a lot more memory efficient than the Mimic Motion. So you don't need to use, you can use a higher batch. So to speed things up, this is what I do. I'll make my bits in Mimic Motion and then I'll join them into this. Okay. Now, the most important thing about all of these is I've made it so that you get a file structure from your outputs. Okay. So when you do a project, it's going to have the project name. And if I go into one of these projects, you can see all the stages are already organized. If I go into stage 0, I've got my source frames, which I use for the Mimic Motion. If I go into Trio, I've got all of the outputs, which I've made. And in the end, it was the white background, which is the best for this. I tried loads of different combinations. In the end, the ones you can see here, you know, it was definitely better to remove the backgrounds, but you have to use a white. So we're using Bria AI matting for all of the automatic roto. That's the back end for that. So if I just keep going, if we go to stage 1, so stage 1, this would be all of the outputs for this run of the character, you know, standing and talking, which is what we're animating here. Now, once I've got them, obviously I've used the joiner, which I'm showing you now, and then it ends up in stage 1 joined. And then we've got our first video. And that is the video which I would then load into stage 2 to do the face swap. So as you can see, if I go back here, we've got stage 2, and there are my face swaps. I got them all in GIF, and I got sequences as well. So you've got the image sequence, not just the video and the, GIF. Because I make a GIF preview. I've got a GIF preview, an MP4, which just has a white background. See, that's the thing. When you save it as video, it loses the transparency. And when you do a GIF, it does funny stuff to the color palette. So what I do is I also have the option to output it all as frames, and then you can reassemble them later. So, because like I said, you need to do it with QuickTime if you want RGBA, so alpha support, and that's my intended use case. So you may not need that part. So, you could probably just do a swap in workflow, which we're gonna do. But I want to break it up and make it like stages. So we're slowly making it more complicated, right? So let's move on. You should know what create face model is. You put a bunch of images in and it saves a face model, which you can then load in the masked face swapping stage. So if you don't have any face models, I've included that over here. Okay, and so as you can see, you put your images of your character in, you give it a name. You can put more images in, all right? And then the last thing was the dumper. So obviously the dumper, it's literally the simplest thing in the universe. It just makes sure it's the same size as what the control net is going to output. So this is the same as the control net output for, the Mimic Motion Open Pose preprocessor. Uses the same, so it'll match whatever you get out of this as frames. Just save them to images. Okay. Right. Now I've explained what these tools are, because I don't know whether you've already got folders of images in sequence, videos ready to go. I don't know what you've got. So these 3 things should give you everything you need without the need to keep jumping in and out of Premiere or something else. I like to give us options to do it in Comfy if we can, right? So obviously we dump the frames, we can join them later. And then if we haven't got a face model, we can make the face model. Right. Now, with that all out of the way, we can look at stage 0. And this is where the fun begins. So stage 0 is Trio. If you're familiar with Trio, we've got a bunch of my keywords here, which come from my latest Loras. So we've got 80s, Not the True World, horror, and an anime model. There's also the microscopy model, but that's turned off. And then we've got the Hyper SDXL 8-step. So I've got all that pre-filled in. So if you wanted to match this exact, that's all. You can just grab these from Civit. They're all on my profile. And what I've done is I've basically done prompt control. We did a whole video on prompt control. So what we're doing is we're bringing in elements from the data of all of these Loras at once. And then we're interpolating them to really draw out the most that we can from our model. Now, if you're wondering where the hell did you get cos real jugs, it's a custom model. Go back and look at my merging models workflow and my cosXL converting workflow. You can download it all. You can watch the videos. You can do it. Just grab a cup of coffee or your favorite beverage, and you'll have a great time. By the end of it, you'll have your own private model. It'll be much nicer than anything you just download, because it's everything you like, but rolled into one. So you can take elements of different things. It just takes a little bit of effort, and you can go much further. Right. So with all that being said, what we're doing is we are doing a prompt, right? Seed control is actually here, because this is actually the prompt seed when you're using text random line. So if I put in like 1,000 lines of random prompts here, you can put this on random and it will, or it will just go through them all one at a time. But I'm not using that right now. This is one line, so it doesn't use multi-line. I could just leave it like that. That's good enough. Randomize every time. Got SDXL on aspect size. I think that's one of my nodes. You'll find it on GitHub. The link's in the description. But you can use any aspect ratio thing here. You don't have to use mine. You can use anyone. Or you can simply go input widget and convert them back to numbers and just put the numbers in yourself. It's not an essential part of the thing if you have a missing node here, right? Okay, so that's everything. Now, Superior is not actually here, so you don't really need that anymore. Now we come to the control net. So what we have is we have pose, edge, and depth. I'm not using Canny. Yeah. So Canny is currently off. We've got open pose XL, we've got the Lora Canny, and we've got the Lora depth, right? All of them are currently, we've got them on, and the depth is at 0.6 strength for the first half only. And then the open pose is on for the whole thing at full strength. Okay. And like I said, we've got the toggle here, so we make sure the toggle is on. I would recommend just playing with your prompt with it off first, so you know you're getting a good prompt. So I'll give you an example of that now. If I just run this, and then we'll go through it while it's chugging. Trio, of course, comes with the triple latent, so it's taking it and doing, 100% denoise 3 times. And the way I recommend that you use it is basically, if you find it's improving it on the second, but not the third, just Control B, and it will just pass it through. All right. And then it still has the same result. It's quite easy to use. I find most of the time the third one is always the best one, but of course it's subjective. So the final one is going to pass the last image through to Brie AI matting, and I'm going to set it to white. This is so useful because it's going to put it out as an image which is pretty much ready to go. That can just go straight into Mimic. However, it sort of tried to dance inside of itself because it didn't really match the video. And so that's when I realized if we just chuck the control net on, because I'm happy that this is a good prompt. I'm very happy with that. So now I'm going to do it again. And this time what's going to happen is it's going to match the input video, which I'm going to use to drive it, or be so close that it's, you'll see. So there we go. All right. So now, I mean, we're holding a sword, but I find that often that gets sort of disappeared. But yeah, basically there she is, right? She's on white. This is as good as you could get automatically, really. Okay. And then all I'm going to do is I'm just going to use this overlay here, right? And I'm going to drop the one I want in there. Now, this is the reason why I haven't connected it all up. I'm going to make another version where I do connect it all up and make it as fast as possible, right? But the issue is this. When you do this section, you have to split it up. So if I want 600 frames, right, which is, let's be honest, only 20 seconds. If I want 600 frames, I've got to split it into 4 jobs of 150. And that's going to require you to put in the numbers here as you need them to be. So you would start at 0, and then you would go to 150. And that's right. And so the way to automate that, obviously, is to have 4 loaders with them all pre-programmed for 600 frames in 150 batches. They'd go into their own resizer. They'd go into their own mimic pose. It would go into its own get size, and it would go into its own motion sampler and decoder. So basically all of this has to go another 3 times. Okay. And then at the end of it, you just join all of the image sequences together and make it into the video. And that would actually eliminate the need for the joiner, because we're essentially just making 4 of these that run in series. And then at the end, we put the joiner code. So, it's possible to build it all in one, but by building it all in one, you sometimes lose some options. So, for example, you might not find out that it's really bad before too late, right? So if you, for example, you did 4 runs on Mimic Motion, right? So let's just activate Mimic so we could get down to there. We've done this section. I hope you understand this. We use our motion driver and take a frame because it's going to be closer to what Mimic is going to animate with. And so it just fits better, basically. Anyway, so when we come down to stage 1, because all of that was really prep. Everything before this point was just prep. And this is the real workflow now. So when we come in here, like I said, you could have this section 4 times. But it's gonna take a long time, like maybe an hour to actually run. And then when it's finally done, you know, if I was going to do that, I would just immediately pipe it into this workflow. So you know what I mean? So you've basically got 4 of these that makes you 20 seconds up in 150 frames a go. You join them all together, just like I show with the joiner code up here. And then you immediately put it straight into this. So you don't bother with another loader. You just literally hook up the output to the input. So, you know, you would take the output from probably this one, because it's white matted again, which is nice. And throw it in there. But you could just do the image sequence, you know, and then keep it transparent from there. So there's options. This is one of the reasons why I've left it open, because at this point, I could generate 10 images here and use the one I like. I could then do a whole bunch of stuff here, but only with the image I wanted, right? Which means that when maybe I reject half the ones I make because I don't like them. Yeah. Well, that means I'm not being tied into generating for a full hour when maybe 3 of them I don't even want. This way I can just generate. And like, if I get a bad generation or whatever, you know, maybe I can retry with slightly different settings. You know, there's stuff you can do. So sometimes it's nice to have a fully automated workflow, but when it takes that long, I think that actually it's sort of detrimental, because it means you have to go away and then you don't realize that it just messed up. Like, anyway. So, because it takes long enough for just doing the 150 being real. And I think a lot of people are going to have to reduce it down to like maybe 60 or even 30 frames at a go. Just depends how big your system is. Because I've seen it using 99% of VRAM. And it gets hot. It's summer. So your computer's likely to overheat. Get that brush out and give it a dust down, because I bet your heat sinks are caked. It's a bad time of year to have a bad cooling situation on a GPU. So get a toothbrush and open it up. Anyway, right. So like I said, we generate this. All right. Now I'm going to put some demos up on the screen so you can have an idea of what the outputs look like. They don't look super amazing, but they do follow the motion really well, and you can ignore the face. Because as long as there's eyes and a mouth for the face swap to, that's good enough. So they're serviceable for the point of view of what we're going to do next. So just to break down the workflow before we move on, what we have is we have the path option, which this is for the video, so for the motion. So I found that if you use load video path, it doesn't say it's out of memory when you use a big video. Okay. I would also recommend cropping your video that you intend to use as a driver to 1024 by 1024, and make sure that the thing you're going to do motion cropping on is centered in the screen. You know, that and good lighting, obviously, right? So we take our image from trio. Sorry, it's not trio 0, just trio. So we take our image from trio. Resize that, blah blah blah. It's basically, this is just to make sure that what you put into it is 1024, and then we fixed at 30 frames. Make sure it's 1024 also. Like, this is all just safety checks, really. You should have already had a 1024 image with a 1024 video, but I did put some checks in to try and save you if you accidentally put like a 4K video in or whatever. Right, 150 on my 4090. It can manage 150. Scale it down 90, 60, 30 if you're having trouble. It will just say run out of memory almost immediately if you can't do it, so don't stress. Okay, we've got it on fill crop. That's important because it'll actually squish the control net and make really weird generations if you don't get that part right. So anyway, it's going to do the mimic motion get pose. We've got a preview for the driver. So as you know, that's me. It's the same stuff I use that I'm speaking with right now. So, you know, it's the same source, right? So you can see, yep, it's me and I'm talking. So minimize that for now. Do recommend keeping these minimized as much as possible. All right. It helps. Even if it's just CPU chug and it's not actually the GPU that's getting stressed, you'll find you get serious lag on the UI. So, right. So obviously we go through the mimic motion 1.1 and through the decoder, and then we get to our first output. Now, this is the first output. Now, I've already showed this on the screen, so we're just going to keep moving. I always give an option of a matted, okay? And generally speaking, I usually do a GIF preview at this point, because if you do MP4, it's just going to put, it's not transparent. MP4 isn't transparent format. So you lose the transparency. And so what I do is over here, we've got a save node and a combine node. One of them is a GIF and the other one is a PNG sequence. So obviously, if you want to take that into an external editor, you can go ahead and clean it up. And then, like basically I've given lots of outs for doing more if that's what you want. Like if you've got Photoshop sitting there on the side and you're a pro, you're not even going to want to, it's nice to have the option of having a PNG sequence that you can mess about with anyway. So that's that. As you can see, after all the enhancements and everything, it's giving this, see, I like this kind of glitchy, trippy, it kind of pops about, it kind of changes a lot, but it's enough. If you zoom out on it, it actually looks quite reasonable. Okay, it's quite good. We've also got some controls. So I've got a threshold of 0.5 on the mask. There's loads of stuff you can do with growing, shrinking, feathering. Okay, so, but like I said, we don't have time to talk about all the masking options in Comfy. By the end of it, you should have a video. Now, what I've done is I've joined, I think, 2 of the outputs from this. And then that's what we're using for this last section here. So if I just go over to my main control panel and turn it to masked face mode, and then down we go. And we're nearly done, by the way, guys. This is actually a relatively short video, considering that this process took me 2 hours live using After Effects, Photoshop, Character Animator, So, right then. So here we are at the final stage. If I make another stress on this, because you may have skipped through the video, if you don't match these, you will end up with files all over the place. If you use the same project for your run, it will put everything in the same place in output. Okay, I think I've gone over this before, but just to sort of double stress it, if you go to your file structure, you'll see that there's 0 for all of the trio outputs, 1 for the mimic motion outputs, and 2 for the joined video, and then 2 for the face swapped stuff. Okay, so, and it's going to give you the sequence as well. So let me just see here. So if I just go over, I can have a look at this quickly. So what you've got is you've got the project name goes in the middle. So it goes RotoMaker / project name, stage 2 face swap. Okay, so that's what this one is going to be. Now, for this one, what we've got is we've got a video combine, which is a GIF. And then we've got a PNG sequence. So let's just open up the name of that. And that one is roto swapped, right? So that would be the PNG sequence, which is, the masked final. So this one would be, like this, a PNG sequence. Because obviously you can't save a video as a transparent, like I say. Yeah, it doesn't do the MOV format properly. They don't come out right. So even though there is the option for QuickTime, I think, or let's have a look. I think they call it ProRes. You can't actually, it doesn't seem to work on my machine. Now, I don't know if that's my fault, but because of that, I can't guarantee it works for everybody. So, okay, so enough talking. Let's just run this. So what I've got while it's running is I've done the image size. I've loaded my face model. Oh, we've loaded the wrong face model. Stop. So let's just go back and get Thora, because this is a girl. So we're going to do a Thora, and it's going to do InSwapper with Reactor. It's then going to do Restore Face, which oddly sharpens up all of the frames a little bit. And then we're going to do the Masking Helper, which should help with occlusion. So if you've got something going on in front of the character, like a little bit of hair goes in front of half the face, the problem with the last technique was it would render the face over the hair. This will put the hair back, okay? That's the best way I can explain it. So if she had her hair like covering her eye, you're not going to see the eye because of this. This is going to put the hair back on top after it's fixed. It's going to fix the face and then put the hair back on top. That's essentially what it's doing. As always, we've got the output being matted to white. Basically, I think the more times you do it, the crisper it gets, basically. And then by the end of it, you should have your video output, which looks pretty good. You should have seen the finished video at the very beginning. Obviously, I'm not doing the voice because I want to do speech on a separate collection, separate videos. So there wouldn't be any talking yet. But yeah, the idea is that you then use text to speech to dub the videos. And that's essentially it, really. So I don't want to go on for too long because I know that people like snappy videos. But that's everything that you need to actually know. I've literally explained everything on here. Now, as I've discussed throughout the video, yes, you could just make it all into one long thing. But if at any point it makes a mistake that you don't like, you've kind of committed to a long process. And so I argue that having it in one workflow like this is much more convenient than having it in 4 tabs. That was a bit unwieldy, but I just got it working, so I wanted to get it out there. So I hope this is a lot more convenient for everyone to use. I hope I've explained what these tools are for, because they really are very useful. If you've been following the channel, you're probably quite familiar with all of these bits by now, because we've done a whole bunch of stuff on them. I would suggest going back and having a look at some of the videos for the last few weeks, because it's mostly in the last couple of weeks. It's not like you have to dig through hundreds of videos to find the content. Yeah, you're going to see the new pack up on Civitai, and yeah, there's likely to be another version coming in a couple of days, and that one will basically be like it'll be more streamlined, a more streamlined version. Probably it's best to drop all of this and just do the white background to an image that you bring in, and then go straight to this, and then go straight to this, and do it all in one go. But like I said, and as I've discussed, I do think there's a lot of value in breaking it up, because it's less wasted compute. Because as I said, if you cancel it, you don't get anything. And if you know you've got something good, it's going to go through better, and that's more efficient. Anyway, this is everything I have to say to you today. So I will see you in the next one. So basically, wait. All right, thanks for downloading the workflows, watching the videos. Hit that bell to be notified of the next video, and thank you for watching. I will see you next time. So, memberships are here. I've added donator and member. The donator membership is just you want to support the channel, help us grow. Member, you're going to get some exclusive video access. So some of the deep dive education stuff I've been doing, there'll be more of that. There's always going to be the same content on the channel that we've always had, but this allows me to do some live shows in future. So look out for the upcoming date, and check out the join now button for more information.